Hi everybody, how you doing? Joe,
What
how
are we
are we?
laughing? I'm laughing because of the thumbnail. It just sort of clicks a very weird thumbnail, doesn't it? How are you? Alright, everyone?
Yeah, we're all good. We're all good here, thankfully.
We've had a move around, haven't we?
We have. We've tried to shake things up a little bit, and we've tried to alter the issues that we had with the light last time, and we've put a microphone in here now, so hopefully you'll be able to hear it a little bit better. So first of all, thanks everybody for your kind comments in the last one. I appreciate it wasn't perfect, but it was our first time having a go. So we're going to give it another go today and see how if this is any better. Looking forward to it. We had some great questions in, and I'm sure we're going to get a few live questions as we go through this. But no, we're all looking good. How are you feeling, Joe?
I'm alright, you know. After you made me cry. It didn't make me cry really. It was all to do with the t-shirt and the sneeze that looked like I didn't know whether it was going to be a sneeze or not. I think that I was crying about a t-shirt. It's a t-shirt. We're okay, we're doing good. Yeah, so welcome to our second YouTube live. Yeah, we've had loads of questions. Thank you very much for that. Thank you ever so much as well for your lovely feedback last week. That's brilliant. So we'll keep these going as long as we're off.
Yeah.
Without further ado, we're going to crack on straight into the first question, which is from our friend Michael Calamander. And
hey, Michael.
This question is about putting grips. So
cool.
really for a demonstration on putting grips.
On different styles of putting grips, I think you said. I better put my children's club away and I'll grab a putter. Now, I had a massive issue with the yips. It'd be, God, how long ago now? 15 years ago, I would say. If foot putts, anything like that, I would easily miss them. I think my last bad round of golf I had nearly 50 putts. I had the yips that bad. And I actually learnt quite a bit about the yips and what it was, and ultimately it comes down to faulty wiring from the brain through to your muscles, and the only way to start to cure them is to do something different. So I had to change my putting grip. I was always very conventional, which is what's called a reverse overlap. I'm going to get in a bit closer so you can see these. So a reverse overlap is where you put your index finger, that sticks out, put your right hand next to it if you're right-handed, and it just goes over the back of the fingers there. So that's what we call a reverse overlap grip, which is what a lot of people use. An extension of that one is where you could start to put your right finger down the shaft if you wanted to, but you don't have to do that one. So that was what we would call a conventional putting grip, but I don't think there is any such thing as conventional anymore. So the way that I got over the yips was I actually went left hand below my right hand. That for me gave me much more stability, which helped with my putting stroke. So that's called a reverse overlap. A left hand below right grip from here. And that's how I put now. I've been doing that for well over 15 years. But some different versions of that for Michael is one way you could put the club where it rests through the palm of your hand this way. So it actually sits in your hand here. So it's called a pencil grip, a bit like you're holding a pencil. That sits in here and your left hand goes on where you feel comfortable. So that's a way of doing it. There's quite a few pros who are doing that on tour now. Not that we need to copy them, but that's what they're doing. Also is what's called the saw grip, where your hand sits this way. So you're actually moving your hand in this direction, and that again just sits into the side. If I do that this way, it just sits into the side. Just tuck your fingers on. So these fingers won't really go on the grip, they'll hang out here, and that is another way of holding the grip. Also I went through and had a bit of success where I actually split my hands completely in half. That gave me a bit more control, but I still had the twisting issue. Tried that long way round this way, and that felt okay, but I did need a longer putter when I did that one. So I would, if you do struggle with putting, I would highly recommend that you try some different styles of grips, rather than, what's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. So if you're not very good at putting, maybe try doing a different putting grip, and remember to hold it nice and lightly. So hopefully that's answered Michael's question. So a few different grips in there, and I'm sure you guys will come up with some different ones as well. Is anybody online, Joe?
Yeah, oh hello, it's me just coming in from the side again, to make sure that's safe. Yeah, hello Alpha from France, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
David, thanks for the compliments on on the YouTube live, much appreciated. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for acknowledging the sound and the light looks a little bit better. I think you, as somebody said, I think it was Alpha, we've got a bit of kickback on the sound. Yeah.
High ceiling, sorry.
It's difficult. Maybe we need to put some cushions against the wall. But
if anybody wants to lend us a really nice building,
yeah, we can't
that'd
get
be
there,
fine.
can we?
Oh yeah, we can't get to you.
Not allowed out.
Sorry about that. Or a nice golf course.
I was just going to ask you, what about when people lean right over the putting stroke as well? Because quite a lot of people are really right down here, aren't
They
they?
do,
What's your
and a
opinion
lot
on
of people get these really short putters. Something that we would actually advise you to do is get a longer putter rather than a shorter putter. The issue being that if you've got a really short putter, so I'll go right down and grip on this one, now I've got to bend right over, puts an awful lot of strain on your lower back, and it's not uncommon to see people standing up even when they're putting. And that's really because their body's in tension, doesn't like it, so it comes out of tension, and then they can make dodgy strokes that way. So we would prefer people to be stood nice and tall rather than too bent over. That way you get the full length of your arms, so they're going to work much better. If you start to bend them too much, that can be more variables in there. So just keeping them nice and long and relaxed. Stand tall and maybe experiment with a slightly longer putter.
Another question, sorry for popping in here again, from Eric, about milking the stroke. Does he do that? Yeah.
Milking the stroke?
Yeah. He's saying, what do you think about milking before the stroke?
Milking, I've never heard of that one, Eric. That's
Right,
a new one on
We
me.
need some more info then, Eric, don't
Yeah,
we?
Eric, send us some more info.
Right.
Put us a little comment below and send that through. I've never heard of it.
Interactive on the messages here, so please let us know. We've had Colin Marsh as well saying hi. Hello,
Hey Colin, how you doing?
Loving his Exios.
Oh, I bet he is as well. Yeah,
That's
they're great.
works, isn't it? See them sitting there. I'll be able to play with
Can't wait to use them. Especially these new ones. Wow. Okay.
And then, right, let's move on to the next question. And we've got Steve from North Yorkshire.
Yeah.
And he's asking about the easiest swing and integrating it into your chipping shots.
Okay.
And then into your pitch shots over water.
Oh, pitch shots over water. Well, the first.
And how do you implement really the easiest swinging goal?
Let's think about the methodology of. We all now know, people who have been following this for quite a while now, know about the dance to golf and turning and weight shift and rhythm and coordination, all those things from there. Now, all I would say for a short, relatively short shot from the edge of the green, absolutely vital that we still use, dare we say, a miniature version of La Dance de Golf. So if this was the full turn to hit the long shots, if we were doing a little chip shot, it becomes a mini version of it. But you'll still see from here there is still a turn and a weight shift. So again, so many people, when they start to chip in, they've been told to go down the grip. It gives you more control. If I go down the grip, now I'm going to have to bend over more. So now I've put more tension in my lower back. What's the first thing I'm going to do when I take the club back? I'm going to come out of tension again. So I'm going to start to stand up, and that's already, we're going to start to top the chip shot. So use the full length of your sand wedge. That's what it's designed for. We don't have to go down here to gain more control. Let's stand up nice and tall where your body's in a much more relaxed state. Now, if I did a shortened chip version from here, very difficult to chip indoors when there's a glass window right next to me, so I'm not going to be able to actually hit a ball. But from here, it's just a gentle turn to the right. It's gentle, but I'm not swaying, and you definitely don't need to stay on your left side, as a lot of people are telling you to do, because again, now you're starting to de-loft your club. Remember, if we move the shaft of the club forward just 1 second, we've taken 6 degrees of loft off that golf club. So if you start leaning forward and leaning the shaft forward, this sand iron that we need to do a little bit of lifting is now becoming more like a 7 iron, something like that. So, let's keep nice and level. And then from here, it's just a simple matter of turn and a gentle turn through. So we turn back, a little turn here, and turn through to target. And what we're going to do is use the loft on the club to lift the ball, not us trying to lift the ball, as you often see people do. Now, just a simple piece of advice here. if I just put my hands this way, so it's almost like I'm pushing down, I'm not forcing them down, I'm just pushing down. So if we move correctly, that down pressure is still here. It's nice and gentle that way. What we would never want to do is see the wrist go up this way. See how that's now going to have a lifting effect. So now we either hit the ground before the ball, or we hit up on the ball and we start to top it. So nice and simple, hands just gently pressing down here and turn it through. Turn through that way. And then if I put my club in my hand, so my hands are doing the same thing from here, it's a gentle turn through. Now, quite a lot of us have not got any excuse now not to get in, if you've got some space near you, to, you know, in my case, go into the garden and start to chip a few golf balls. It makes a huge difference doing that one. And then, so if we're now putting something in the way, i.e. water, where we need a slightly longer version of the golf swing, I will have to go down the grip just to demonstrate, because I don't want to hit anything in here. So now I'm just going down the grip, and my club's hovering off the ground here. So if I want to go over water, the loft of the club will do the lifting. Remember, water's nice and flat. We don't have to try and lift it way over it. Let the loft of the club do it. Gentle turn here, and now you might need a little bit of wrist cock in here. So now the club's working more upwards rather than around. You really don't want to go round on these particular shots. Try and get the club to feel a little bit more upright. But again, it's a mini version of Le Dance de Golf. So cocking the wrists here, release, and now you're starting to turn all the way through. And you see my weight's nice and forward again. If I lean back, trying to help the ball up, absolute nightmare. I have done some videos on these particular shots, so well worth having a look through the YouTube channel and see if you can come across one today. Hope that helps a little bit. It's just, I'd love to be able to demonstrate it properly with the ball, but unfortunately we're a bit restricted.
Coming in from stage left.
Stage left, into stage left, into Joe.
We're saying hi to Steve.
Hi Steve.
How are you doing? Milking is about milking the cow, apparently, according to Eric. Milking the cow, multiple pressures on the grip, and it may help to find a good grip pressure. More on that next time then.
Well, I had a great response to a video that I put out there, and this guy really didn't like the idea of judging it from 1 to 10. We quite like the idea, if you can measure it, you can change it. But I like what he said. He says, almost imagine like you're holding a child's hand. You're holding it so they can't run off, but you're certainly not squeezing it where you're going to hurt them. So maybe that's a different way of thinking about it. I quite like that idea.
Something that we've never heard of before.
Yeah, I've never heard of milking, Eric. I'm going to look into that a bit more detail and maybe answer that one in the next one.
Yeah. Well, we had some. Let's just bring us up to date with a bit of news then around the world. We're hearing that Denmark actually is considering reopening their golf courses.
Yeah, one of the Easy Swing coaches in Applegard, he's in Denmark, and apparently they may be opening, maybe limited and things you can do, but
going out every 10 minutes apparently, 2 balls and stuff like that. So you might know that already, but you know, it's a step forward in the right direction, isn't it? And then thoughts on the Big E. Hi Eric in the USA. He's been sending us a lot of emails this week, hasn't he? But he's brought to our attention some of the things about Padraig Harrington, saying that could be an easier swing ambassador, because a lot of things that he says are aligned with the easier swing. So he sent us a couple of quotes which are really good. So I'll just share with you the quotes that Eric's sending us. So we had a conversation about this earlier, but he said it's pretty simple to play this game to a single-figured standard. It's enormously complicated to play it to an elite level. Yeah. So we had a conversation about this, didn't we? Because he would say that it's easy to play single figures, wouldn't it? What did you say?
The elite level is a totally different level, and you know, I've played with a few elite golfers, and they can do things that I simply can't do. So trying to copy them, as a quote from Fred Shoemaker, is a fool's errand. You know, these guys are elite. You know, I can't run 100 metres like Usain Bolt could. I can't do what Mo Farah does. I can't do what other people do. And yet we are all told to emulate them and try and do the same thing as them. And
you mean you
it's
can't?
not impossible.
I
wish. Yeah, I can play
to disappointed now.
You know, I could play to a nice standard, but you know, there's a difference between breaking 80 and shooting 63. You know, you're looking at 16 shot difference, and that when you're already pretty good to go to knocking 16 shots off if you're off 9 handicap, I mean that is just unbelievable.
So it's a fool's errand.
A fool's errand, it's a good quote.
Yeah.
Very good quote.
Another little hint here, while we're all off and we can't play golf, a little hint from you is about the podcast, aren't you? Because that's what you've been doing today.
Yeah, I've actually been listening to Dr. Carl Morris, the Brain Booster, I think, are his podcast. He has some fabulous people, and I think Brian Sparks is actually. I know he's been interviewed by Dr. Carl Morris. Dr. Carl Morris, if you don't know, is a golf psychologist. He's had quite a few major winners under his belt, but he interviews some great people. And if we've got this spare time, it's no better time now to start to re-educate ourselves a little bit. So maybe listening to podcasts. I love listening. I love watching YouTube. I'm a big fan of that. If YouTube had been around when I was at school, I think I'd have done much better. But also reading some great books out there. You can download them. You don't even have to go out and get them. So just take this. I don't think hopefully we'll never get this time again. And if you can take every opportunity to improve your golf, not necessarily by swinging the golf club better, but by improving your knowledge and your brain, then that's got to be a good thing, Joe.
To be honest, I honestly thought he was asleep when he was listening to the podcast.
No, I wasn't. I promise you, I was actually listening to it with my eyes closed.
You're getting lost in the moment. Well done, Julian. Right, let's take a question online then. Tim Arnold, hello Tim, how are you?
Hey, Tim.
He's saying, when I play a chip that way, the club bounce encourages a thin.
Okay.
Hogan used to say it's like holding a baby bird. Yes, I've heard that. You said that.
Yeah, tube of toothpaste is another one that people have used, but again, what we don't want to do is hold it too tight. Very commonly, if you're bouncing the club off the ground, it's generally down to poor body movement, and that normally happens through a little tilt here. What that does is lowers the right side, it's slightly behind the ball, and if the ground's relatively thin, we increase the bounce of the club, and then we tend to thin the ball. So if you can make sure that you turn through and don't lean slightly back, and the best way of seeing whether you do this or not is to video yourself. We've all got a device now pretty much where we can stick a camera, even if you stick it on the floor, film yourself, because I use this saying all the time, feel and real are not the same thing. What you think you're doing and what you're actually doing can be totally different. So get yourself on film, play a few of these shots and see what you're actually doing. I'll almost guarantee that you're getting slightly this way through impact and not turning
It is totally true. I've been doing a few, just for like trying to inspire myself really, a few live Facebook yoga.
Yeah.
And I'm not a qualified yoga instructor, I just want to inspire people to take it up. And I was absolutely convinced I was bending further back than I was until I videoed myself.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So it's amazing. I was thinking, oh my life, I need some more work for that. So let's just take another question here from Rex. Rex and Jane, or the tag names that. How important is the flat left wrist at the top of the backswing?
Not. How's that for an answer? Let me very, very quickly cover this subject. Fabulous subject. In fact, I've been doing this with somebody else online very recently. If I was to throw this club towards you, so if you're looking at me now, just throwing this over my right shoulder, what does my right wrist look like now? See how there's a slight cupping in the wrist here. So if I did this, how would it look? Would I throw it towards you or maybe across you? So would you say that this is far more natural than this? So an issue that I have, when people try and keep this too flat from here, they put extra tension in the wrist, and then through impact they tend to hold it too long, which now leaves the club face wide open, and then you get that horrible right shot. So my advice is cock your wrists naturally. This is the right way for them to cock. So if I was throwing it towards you now, my wrist cocked, so there's a natural cupping in the wrist. You don't need to try and keep it here, or like Dustin Johnson, who gets it very much this way. Look at my elbows now, look at what that's done to them. So if I try to keep this too straight, it naturally causes tension and very often damages. They don't release the club and then they hit that horrible right shot. So do it naturally. Natural, not neutral. There, nice. And so there's a natural cupping in the wrists. Hope that's answered that question, Rex.
Yeah, well, hopefully, yeah, you can let us know on the live feed there. Big hi, big shout out as well to Doug McPherson. Hello,
Hey,
Doug,
Doug.
how are you?
How
Nice
you
to see
doing?
you. Hoping to see you back when it all reopens again. Just a couple more things from Padraig Harrington,
Oh, yes.
which the Big E sent us. Doing the simple things will get you there. Doing the complicated things will likely send you backwards. That's so easy a swing, isn't it?
That's so easy to swing,
Yeah.
And everybody's looking for that little miracle, that tip, that wonder tip that's going to change the world. But they make simplicity complex.
Yeah.
And the more complex your golf swing is, the less it's going to be reliable, especially under pressure. So the more natural you can make your golf swing, the better.
Keep it simple. The other one that he says, which is another great easier swing, always focusing on holding your finish, is a simple swing thought that will improve your balance without you even noticing it. So we often talk about the finish, don't we? Holding your finish.
Oh, well, we've got a little saying. You've probably heard the saying location, location, location when we're talking about properties. If we could exchange that, ours would be finish, finish, finish. Hold that balance finish. The reason being, to hold a balance finish requires a good beginning and a good middle to have a good end. So you can't falsify that finish. You're either finishing in balance or you're not. So practice it. The more and more you practice it, the better and better you're going to get at it. And very rare would we say that go and look at this professional's golf swing. But if you want to look at the most incredibly balanced finish of any golfer on tour, look at Rory McIlroy. When he's in full flow, I don't think there's anybody sticks a finish like he does. Bang, it's at full speed and he's perfectly balanced when he's done it.
But that's how he was taught, wasn't it? He was
Apparently-
taught from the hearsay says.
Hearsay says that he was taught from the finish back to the start. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, because I don't know Rory or any of his coaches, but that's what I've heard. It's not bad philosophy, is it? If we can just stick that finish, hold that lovely finish. Remember, keep those shoulders down. What we desperately don't want to do in that finish, the higher we start to reach and the more tension we're putting on, I don't really feel that there, then the harder it is to maintain your balance. So keep those shoulders down, keep them relaxed, nice and soft here. You'll actually gain speed, you'll gain distance.
Yeah, so relaxed. Final quote that we've been sent about Padraig Harrington, which is great.
Yeah.
Love this, love this, love this. Keeping your head down is the single worst piece of advice to give to golfers. Single most worst piece
Absolutely
of advice.
correct.
Try and keep your head down will only lock your golf swing up, cost you distance and then even injure yourself.
Oh,
So, worst
absolutely spot on. And I think the worst piece of advice as well to give anybody is you watch the ball and I'll see where it goes for you. It's just terrible. Just please stop keeping your head down if that's what you think.
We saw somebody, teaching somebody with their head down, and it's just, oh my life.
Oh, especially when you see the pro with their hand on their
head. With the juniors as well. Oh man.
That's just terrible.
We got a bit emotional then, didn't we? Quite rightly so. So here's a question from Bob that we got sent during the week. When I'm playing well, I tend to start trying too hard to maintain that standard of play. Therefore, it gets more tense than sticking to the relaxed, focused swing that got him in the first place. So he's saying, can you suggest any strategies that keeps the swing relaxed, impervious to such changes? We almost wrote an essay on this one, didn't we?
We did. We've gone through a few bits on there, haven't we? But
you start, yeah.
I think the first bit is what we call awareness. A saying that we use all the time: awareness cures trying fails. You've probably seen that loads of times on videos, but it's so true. You need to become aware of yourself, not necessarily a golf swing, but maybe what's happening with your breathing or your speed. You might find yourself walking quicker because you're getting a little bit excited. The adrenaline's going to be starting to rush through, and that's going to alter your muscle state. They're probably going to start to tighten up a little bit. So the first thing is be aware: am I tense, or am I getting a bit excited, or do I need to do a little bit of deep breathing to start to calm down? And then there's always the thing of what we call the pre-shot routine. So let's say we know that if we're under pressure, we tend to tighten up a little bit more. A great thing to do before you're playing your shots, if the golf ball's out in front and I'm stuck behind, tighten up too much and then let it go. Tighten up too much and let it go. And then you'll start to feel what state you need to be in again. Now, not everybody, but what a lot of people do is they get excited and they start to think ahead of themselves. And we've all heard it, let's stay in the moment. But really, what is that? And that's really being in the here and now and really focusing on what you need to do rather than what is going to happen. Oh, if I do this, I'm playing my best shot. Oh no, I've just blown it, and so on and so forth. And I must share this with you as probably the single best demonstration of self-control that I've ever seen. So I was playing with a guy, hopefully this won't take too long. I was playing with a guy a few years ago, and a 4 handicapper, and on hole 17 he was 4 under par gross. One of the best rounds of golf that he's ever played. And he's on the 17th tee, he's bound to shoot, or he's going to shoot his best round ever. I think his best round before was 1 under, he's 4 under. He's flat topped the shot off the 17th tee. Okay, now most of us go, oh God, I've just ruined my round now. I was on for my best round, now what's happened? He flat topped it, probably went 20 yards. He looked at his club and he went, oh, that's interesting. And he put it back in his bag. He then hit a rescue club down the fairway. He wasted it onto the green, hold the putt for a 4, and then he birdied the last. He shot 5 under par. Fabulous round, absolutely thrashed me. But what a great thing to do in that moment when you're all excited that he actually had the awareness to not react to the shot. And I believe that Brian's been doing some videos on YouTube on this one, but not overreacting to it. Just stay calm as much as you can, because the calmer you are, the better the state your muscles are, the better you play golf.
I mean, most sports people now do regularly practice meditation.
Yeah.
So it's gone from being something that was a bit far out and a bit way out to something that's a bit more mainstream now. So if there is a chance while we're off to learn to meditate, it's a great idea to do that. You don't have to go and sit on a rock, and you can do it in your armchair. You can do it, lying flat on the floor or in your bed.
On the way to the golf course,
nearly. Yeah. When you eventually get back playing, but what it does is it teaches you to breathe a lot better. So what happens is when you start to get stressed or a bit anxious on the golf course or a bit annoyed, your breathing starts to shallow. When you can learn to meditate properly, you become in control of that emotion. You become in control of your body, because if you can retain your breath, it's not actually sending your body into a panic state. It's just saying it's calm. So when you're meditating, you're retraining your mind by the use of your breath. So it's not just something that's a bit ethereal. It's a scientific, fact now that meditation will help you stay calm and focused. And I think now is a perfect opportunity to work out, while you're off the golf course, what are your triggers? What winds you up? What's your response to that? We can give you no end of solution, but you've got to find your own. Our page of A4 were things like, just let it, you've got to shake your body, let it go.
Okay.
Or when you're all cooped up in the one house, you've got to find ways to just let that tension go, that stress go, because it just passes amongst the family. Yeah. And detaching yourself from the outcome, aren't you? And
definitely, if you can not think about what's going to happen and just play the shot.
I love your.
It sounds so easy.
This is not golf related, but I love your little story about having to wait in the queue. I think everybody's got so hyper and so fast that now we're having to stand in queues of 2 metres apart. And actually, I think that's given us all a chance to just step back and calm down. But your story's
today. I was just in the supermarket, and this lady was taking an absolute age to put the stuff on there. She put it 1 bit at a time, really methodical. Now, in the past, I would have just gone to the next queue or gone further away, but I had no choice. I just stood there and I just watched her do it. I wasn't really saying rush or no rush. I was just watching how methodically she kept putting these things on there. Eventually, she went. I put mine, and I got off. But
what I think is really
taught me a bit about myself. Definitely.
What's really interesting about that is that you actually noticed what was going on.
Yeah, I was just
when we're all so busy doing stuff, but this is a great time to retrain your habits now.
Yeah,
so every time you find yourself getting a bit rushy or a bit stressed, it's a great time while you're at home, because you will take those things onto the golf course sometimes, so it's understanding that. All my life we could have written loads of things.
Right, what's the next one?
Well, the next question is from Andy at Richmond, and he is saying, should we work on the mental side of golf? I think we've covered that quite a lot.
Yeah, we should.
By, just working out. I think it was Sam Sneed that actually said a bad attitude is much worse than a bad golf swing.
Yeah. You wouldn't believe that sun's just popping through there, just putting a nice glow on me.
Okay, so next question is from Andy in New Zealand. Hi,
Andy.
In New Zealand. And he's asking, how can I get a bit more distance? I'm gonna get out of the way.
Andy, Bend your left arm. If we think about throwing something, so if I'm going to do this from the side. How far, let me move so I don't hit the light, how far could I throw something keeping my arm really straight from here? I'll get some kind of distance, but how far could I throw it now if I bend my left arm? Now what you've got here are two levers. You've not only just got your wrist, but now you've got your elbow lever as well, which now can double the speed there. So your arm is naturally going to come down straighter if you swing the club head properly, and there's a natural straightening of the club and the arm. Now, what if we start to try and keep this long and straight? It's going to be very tense, and it's actually slow. You're going to have to really turn your body very fast to get some speed into the club head. So explore bending that left arm more, because you're going to gain more speed. So very, very simple to do, and it's, you know, keeping the arm straight is one of our deadly don'ts, but explore bending the arm more. Your muscles will be more relaxed, they'll move faster, you'll move the club head quicker, and you'll definitely gain some more distance. Really simple to do. You don't have to force all the hips and the body and the shoulders and all that stuff. Just let's use our body really efficiently. So bending the arm will do no harm whatsoever.
I was just thinking, just to use another yoga analogy, it's very apparent in yoga that the more you relax and the more you soften, the more you'll be able to stretch your body. It's not about force or tension. If you try and touch your toes and you breathe, you relax, you'll get nearer the floor. You try and force it, you won't, because you force and you tighten up.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. So bend that left arm.
I think everybody gets a bit too obsessed with distance, or not?
Yes.
I think we need to get a little bit perspective on that.
If you want to start to lower your score, start from the green backwards.
Yeah, love that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we've got a question on that, haven't we, Joe?
Yeah,
at some point?
I was going to say, did you want to, was there a demonstration that you got lined up somewhere?
No, not at the moment. Okay.
So yeah, basically, next question is from Pat Gould in Scotland. How can I lower my scores when I next get back to playing golf?
It's a fun one, this one, and well, they are just from that last one. So start from the green backwards. So let's say we're going to hopefully make 2 putts, and if you can't 2 putt, start practicing your putting. Get really, really good at pace putting. Yeah, so perfect pace is much better than trying to hit them firm into the back hole. Perfect pace is going to help. So start for the putting first. So let's say we've got two putts, hopefully maximum. That then, if you know that you're not going to 3 putt or 4 putt, that's starting to take pressure off the shots before that. So you must, if you want to really lower your scores, you must get much better from 80 yards and in. If you could start to hit 6 greens out of 10 from 80 yards and in, you will definitely start to lower your scores. So what I see with higher handicappers is they generally miss the greens, but they miss it in bad places. They'll miss it in the bunker, and then they might take 2 shots out of the bunker, get it on the green. They're so frustrated they don't pay attention to putting, so then they start to 3 putt. So before you know it, if you can take no more than 3 shots from 80 yards and in, your scores will 100% lower. And I heard a fabulous story, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but hopefully it is very often we're drawn to the pin. You know, we always try and hit it close to the pin, and these greenkeepers are a bit sneaky and they stick it behind hazards, and before we know it, slight miss it, we end up in the hazard. So now it's going to make the score a bit more difficult. Now apparently this pro went for an interview for a job, and at the very end he was almost going to get the job, and he says, what are you going to do for our members if we give you this job? He says, I'm going to lower everybody's handicap. And he says, how on earth are you going to do that? He says, I'm going to take all the pins out. Now that may sound a bit silly, but actually if you just know where the green is, you try and hit it onto the middle of the green, you're never going to be a million miles away from the flag, but you start sticking those flags into corners, you start going at them. Now the other way to start to lower your scores is play to your strengths, not your weaknesses. So if you're very, very good at keeping the ball in play off the tee, just stick to that shot. Don't try and get another 40 yards and take these adventurous lines that people try and do. So play to your strengths rather than your weaknesses. And if you've got weaknesses, then start to work on those. And again, I don't really like to use the word work. It should be, we should be enjoying improving rather than working at improving. But so start to do those things. And another cool thing, and I took this advice from, he's actually caddies on tours. He's a Zexio rep, but he also caddies on the ladies tour. And so he has to go and measure the golf courses because people are, if we think about our egos, we try and carry the ball further than we know we're capable of. The first thing he does when he goes to a brand new golf course is he Google Earths it, and there's a device on there where you can actually measure. There's like a ruler on there, so you can get the tee, you can measure it. So if let's say there's a hole on your course where you try and cut the corner, well actually you can, on Google Earth you can measure how far you have to carry the ball to get it over that hazard. And that was a great piece of it. We've all got the lasers, we've all got the GPS type things, but actually using Google Earth as well in a smart way, and you've definitely got time to do it at the moment, so have a go on Google Earth, that might help as well.
Have a go on Google Earth. Tim, we just get back to the queue thing. Tim's just moaning about having to stand 2 metres away from everybody. Let's just go with it, let's go with the 2 metres thing. I know, yeah, I thought that was a bit close. Just a bit about our golf course as well. We've seen some pictures from our golf course, and I think like most golf courses in the UK, they are carrying on doing the maintenance and stuff, don't it? So it's looking good.
I'll tell you what, I can't wait to get back on it. There's going to be no pitch marks, there's going to be very few divots.
Be the first person on it.
They're going to be perfectly cut. Oh God, I do hope we can all get back out there soon.
That's amazing, didn't it? So big thumbs up to all the greenkeepers out there.
Yeah, well, to anybody who's involved in golf, and you're all doing great things. Let's keep doing it. Really, it's very strange times.
Yeah. Last question is from Chip in Washington, USA.
Oh, Chip.
Should I swing the club head or leave the club?
Oh, good question.
I'll leave that one to you then.
Chip. The amount of people that I see doing this, I'm trying to get it so the sun's not on me. So, swing the club head or lead the club head. I'll show you what leading the club head is. So, we've made our backswing, we're on our way down, and we start to hold. So, I don't really like using what's called positions, because these only really came about when the camera was invented, but so often what we see are people almost here through impact. So the club is slightly lower than my hand. So this is really leading the club. Now if we think about the speed of the club, is that going quick or is this going quick? So see how I've swung the club head. So the club now is all the way around here by the time my hands are in the same place. But then if I lead it, that club is going slower than my hands rather than accelerating. So really simple thing is, if you imagine we've turned it to here in the backswing, it should look the same in the follow through. So rather than here where we start to hold that horrible tension there, so that we're swinging the club, it swings, and if we just do a pendulum, remember it swings, it doesn't lead. There it swings, so swing the club. It sounds really simple, doesn't it? Swing the club head, don't lead it, it's really bad. Also leads to a lot of weak shots because we increase the loft, and also, I don't know if you can see this from here, but we're also now pointing the club face way to the right when we do that one. So that horrible high shot that has no distance on it, and we lose a lot of speed, so let's release that club, swing the club head.
You know what I'm really getting frustrated about is that I just want to play some golf now. I'm like watching you like that, I'm like, that's so frustrating, we can't get that. But I've just remembered that we are getting our little special toy this week. We're getting a net for the garden, aren't we?
Sending this to
Net Sports World are sending us a net for the garden and a mat.
Oh, can't wait. So I'll actually go and hit some balls in the garden.
We're going to, me.
You're going to hit them, well.
Do you know, I might even get some coaching. Nobody's too busy.
Well, we've got time, haven't we?
I know, exactly. Happy days, I think that one is. Yeah, we'll do some demo where we got how to be a bad golfer. That's me. Steed4047 on YouTube, said probably 40 years ago, a famous pro said that all average golfers should try to hit the middle of the green with their approach shots. They'll lower your score. He said, I've tried and it works.
Well, it's just fabulous advice, isn't it? I think the interesting thing is go and try it.
Yeah.
You know, just take your ego, put your ego in your golf bag, leave it in there for a little bit, and go and try it on there.
Well, we should do a podcast on ego. Letting go of your ego. That'd be quite interesting. Michael, hiya, in Indiana, USA. How are you doing? He said, thanks for doing these chats. They're so informative. It's our pleasure. We'll be here
Absolute
same time.
Pleasure.
We love doing them.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you love doing, but you never thought you would.
No.
But we'll carry on doing them as long as we
I'll tell you
can.
what I do want to do, because you've all got some time. We want to improve our golf, no question about it. Really simple thing to do is, if you can start to be more aware of your club and you know what it's actually doing, that will definitely have a benefit when you get back playing. If you don't know what this thing is doing, then you're going to hit shots left, right, and maybe some down the centre. So here's my little test for you.
This is
Okay.
this week's
Now,
challenge.
this is this week's challenge. Now, you know, you might say, oh, he's smart ass, or he's been playing golf for all his life, he can easily do this. But to gain some awareness and some control of this, my challenge to you, first off, is to do 5 keepy-uppies and then to do 10. Okay, so let's count them. Now, again, if my club face wasn't level, this ball would be flying all over the place. And then from there, I can actually stop it on here and control it. Now, if I wanted to, I don't know whether you can see this or not, let me come in a little bit closer. You can actually start to spin it. I don't know if you can see that or not. And then gain control over it. So imagine if you've got that kind of control indoors. Oops.
Oh,
Don't do that indoors because you might break the piano.
that's a YouTube live.
So if you can be better than I can. Oh, that was classic, wasn't it?
Epic fail.
Epic fail, yeah. So gain control of that club, do 10 keepy-uppies and let me know if you can do it.
Oh man, you just, yeah.
I've actually got the piano.
Keyboard.
It's
Oh well.
we can fix it.
Final question before we go. It's from Brian Sparks.
Oh, Brian!
Yeah, the one and only Brian Sparks, yeah.
Oh my God.
And he's saying, how does your swing compare to how it used to be? And then we'll finish with some goodbyes.
Oh, how does it compare? Nothing compares to my swing now to how it used to be. My swing was complicated, forced.
Oh!
Here's a little puppy just come to see us as well. There we are. Here's little Chloe coming to see us. Don't mess around with dogs and children. So how does my swing compare? I used to be very, very rigid, so very static, minimum hip turn, trying to turn my shoulders as much as possible, really, really rigid in from here, and it's all about force, trying to get lots of force, lots of speed, and my golf swing, well, I thought I was going to need a new hip and knee, it was that painful. And literally, when I started to learn the easiest swing, Brian came and showed me what to do, and I would say within 8 shots, I was convinced that this was the right thing to do, because suddenly I had a flow to the golf swing and it didn't hurt. That was the most important thing. And I actually gained distance, which was, a lot of people say, oh, if I do this lazy swing, I'm going to lose distance. Well, I actually gained 5 miles an hour club head speed because my muscles were in a much better state and they moved a lot faster. So I was all force and trying to put all this power in. There is no comparison. I could never go back to swinging the way I used to.
No, you couldn't. Thank goodness as well, because I think I might have said before, to go out for dinner with you or to go anywhere without complaining of a bad back or a bad knee.
Yeah.
So now we've got the dog, because the
Hey,
dog
Chloe.
and the daughter were wondering what was going on. So Rex says, smashing, good demonstration.
Hey Rex.
Peter says, hilarious and good times. And Frank in Germany, in Hamburg, said, that was great content as always. So,
Good to
yeah,
see
we're
you,
pleased to entertain you with Julian in that house.
Just don't tell anybody.
Just little Chloe. So we have had some questions about swing light and stuff, which we'll probably cover off next week. So
Yeah.
please keep your emails coming in, keep your hellos, and we'll give you a shout out next week. And main thing is just to stay well, stay safe in it. And if the
Yeah.
golf takes your mind off everything that's going on in the world, then
Yeah,
that's all well and good.
definitely. We're going to talk next week about a book that you're all going to write for yourself. It's going to be a one-off, and it's going to be the most positive book that you've ever read in your life. So we'll talk more about that in the next one.
Sebastian just said about doing FaceTime lessons in the garden. Yeah, of course.
Oh
Thank you,
yeah,
Sebastian,
well
very
we're
nice
going to
about
be doing that soon, I think, Sebastian, aren't we?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
we've
we've
done a
once we
few
get
of
the
those.
net.
Well, yeah, we'll have the net and be able to demonstrate it in real time. So
Yeah.
that works great, and hopefully the courses are going to be open. I've got a few courses already in the diary from May, June, July, August onwards. So we're hoping that people book back onto those once we're all allowed out again. So let's just hope this thing passes quickly.
Yeah, just stay safe and stay well anyway. Lots of love to you all. I would
Thanks
say
for
happy
watching.
golfing.
Yeah, well,
Happy-
soon.
Yeah.
Happy virtual golfing.
You take
And,
care.
just look after yourselves. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
That's unclear.